Welcome, social science research methods students, to the next article that we are going to take a look at. This article was selected by Trudy Fisher, and it is titled Schools as Surveilling Institutions. Paternal Incarceration, System Avoidance, and Parental Involvement in Schooling. Okay, so before we get started looking at particulars, let's big picture stuff here. Big picture. Does the United States incarcerate a lot of people compared to other Western industrialized democracies? Yes, right? So the authors present data showing that about 1 in 14 kids will be affected by parental incarceration in the United States. Does that sound like a lot of kids to you?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a concern. What effect do you think being previously incarcerated has on family dynamics after that point? You come home, is everything just like normal, or?
No, I wouldn't say so.
You wouldn't say so? What do you think are some of the things that probably change after someone gets let out of jail and they come home, prison?
Well, the power dynamics probably changed between the dad and the mom, depending on who got thrown in.
Okay, good point, right?
Yeah.
So while one parent was incarcerated, was the other parent running the show at home?
Yeah.
Was the other parent, if one parent's incarcerated, was the other parent probably doing a lot of the chores around the house?
Yeah.
Making sure the kids had finished their homework.
Yep.
Reading to the kids. Going to parent-teacher conferences, and that type of stuff, right? So once you're let out, do things just totally get back to normal, or do people probably keep engaging in those roles for a while?
And keep it up,
Yeah, that's possible, right? Okay. Now, let's look at the title of the article: Schools as Surveilling Institutions. What is a surveilling institution?
Where you're always being watched.
You're being watched, absolutely, right? So if someone who's previously been incarcerated shows up at school for a parent-teacher conference, will records be kept of that? Yeah. If you've previously been incarcerated, why might you not want to go to a parent-teacher conference where records will be kept of that?
I don't know, just fear of authority, more institutions.
Yeah, basically, again, criminology is not my area of expertise, but in articles like this, the researchers go through previous research that has been done on the effects of incarceration on people once they get let out, and they find that basically people that have previously been incarcerated, they avoid all kinds of institutions that keep official records, know where you are at a certain time, that type of thing. Even like banks. You would think, why would someone be hesitant to use a bank after they get out of jail? Just because they gather official records and official documents, and records are kept of who you are and where you are and what you're doing, right? Do hospitals keep official records, whether you've been admitted or not?
Yep.
Yeah, they do. And so, again, research has shown people that have been previously incarcerated avoid banks, they avoid hospitals, and chances are they avoid schools, right, as well. So this is going to take a look at that, whether they avoid schools and to what extent. So, basically, the theory is that previous incarceration is probably going to reduce parental involvement in a child's education. Now, the existing literature distinguishes between parental involvement and parental engagement, right? Okay, yeah, exactly, right. So, what do you suppose is the difference between parental involvement and parental engagement? Just take a shot in the dark, because it's not all that important for us.
I honestly have no idea.
Okay, and there's no problem with that. That's the whole reason I bring it up. In class we talk about conceptualization, operationalization, measurement, right? Mm-hmm. The only reason I'm bringing this up is to let you know that experts in this field distinguish between parental involvement and parental engagement. Now, for our purposes today, we're not going to distinguish a whole lot between the two, right? But for those, like I said, who study this in depth, they make a distinction between parental involvement and parental engagement. At least some people do, right? So, for our purposes, let's avoid the difference, right? And how would you measure parental involvement?
Easy, just how much time they spend with the kids.
Okay, easy. With the kids. All right. Reading to kids?
Yeah, sure.
Helping with homework?
Sure, yeah.
Asking if they've done their homework?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's interesting, all those you mentioned can occur in the home.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, researchers also distinguish between basically involvement that occurs in the home and that occurs at the school, right? Can you also participate in your child's school experience by going to their soccer games or cheerleading, or whatever, parent-teacher conferences? Yeah. Any other type of event that is sponsored at the school. Yeah, right? So again, just keep in mind there's a difference between involvement or engagement that occurs at home, involvement or engagement that occurs at schools. In theory, which one, if you've been previously incarcerated, which one are you probably less likely to participate in?
Ones at schools.
The ones at schools, exactly. But in theory, the previous incarceration shouldn't reduce your home involvement. But as we pointed out, if the spouse or the partner has gotten used to doing all the heavy lifting, then maybe it will lower your participation. So there's lots of good questions to look at here. Okay, next really nice thing about this journal article, it appeared in the American Sociological Review. Again, excellent article, or excellent journal. And they're looking at homes, they're looking at schools, and they're looking at prisons, right? Are those three very important institutions in our society? Yeah, and so, it's very appropriate for sociologists to look at the interaction between the three, right? Because they're three very important institutions. Okay. So let's talk about the data set that they use first. They use the Fragile Families study. And this was a longitudinal birth cohort study that follows 4,898 focal children, FOCAL. They're the focus of the study. They're the ones you're studying. And their parents. So it follows the children and their parents, providing a representative, contemporary, and diverse sample of urban hospital births in large U.S. cities between the years 98 and 2000. Okay? It's not really representative of the entire country, right? It's representative of children that are born in these urban areas, right? For mothers, the baseline interview took place in hospitals within 48 hours of the birth of the child. And that's when they asked them a bunch of questions about their pregnancy, that type of thing. So in theory, you could ask anything under the sun. You know, did you smoke while you were pregnant? Did you drink alcohol while you were pregnant? Did you get prenatal care? How many times did you go to the doctor? Were you ever in a violent altercation with your spouse while you were pregnant? You know, I mean, they asked a lot of questions. And those are examples. They may not be exact. I don't have the study memorized, right? But you know, they asked some questions right after they gave birth. And for fathers, they asked soon thereafter. So since the baseline wave, 4 additional follow-up waves of phone interviews occurred, and they took place when the child was approximately 1, 3, 5, and 9. Okay, so 1, 3, 5, and 9. So basic research questions here. Do we have cross-sectional data or longitudinal data here? Longitudinal, right? So what's kind of one of the nice things about longitudinal data like this, where they follow people over multiple years?
Well, it could show like causation better.
In general, longitudinal data is better at establishing causality. Yeah, because time order's easier to establish, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's largely their data set. They also use another data set that I don't want to go into, but that's largely their data set. Okay, then they basically set up their data. They include some descriptive statistics, which are all fine and dandy. And then this is basically what it's all gonna boil down to. But this list is gonna be huge. But this is the framework, right? Parental involvement is the dependent variable, right?
Yeah.
Parental involvement is the dependent variable. And what affects the dependent variable? Well, just to get us started, I'm going to give us 2 easy ones. Low-hanging fruit, father's education level. As father's education level increases, what do you suppose happens to the level of parental involvement? Increases, right? As mother's education level increases, what do you suppose happens to the level of parental involvement? Increases. And what's the biggie that we're really going to care about?
Previously incarcerated.
Yeah, whether you're previously incarcerated or not, and whether that affects levels of parental involvement. Now, here's the thing. Do a lot of things that affect whether or not someone gets incarcerated also affect how involved they are in their kids' education? Yeah, exactly, right? So they're gonna have to control for tons of other variables, other independent variables. So imagine this list going down, 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 down. In order to explore the independent effect that being previously incarcerated is going to have on the dependent variable. Make sense? Okay, so are you guys ready for this list? This is the list. So they go over a few things. They say control variables. That's just another name for the independent variables that you included, right? Control variables include where the father is currently incarcerated at year 9. Mother criminal justice contact. Father impulsivity. Mother impulsivity. Father substance abuse. Mother violence victimization by father. Mother married or cohabiting with father at child's birth. Mother-father relationship quality. Mother reads to child at 1 year survey. Father reads to child at 1 year survey. Father-child contact. Either parent not a citizen. Father age. Mother lived with both parents at age 15. Father lived with both parents at age 15. Mother education. Father education. Mother cognitive ability. Father cognitive ability. Mother religious attendance. Father religious attendance. Mother depression. Father depression. Mother unemployment. Father unemployment. Father military service. Mother-father income to poverty ratio. Mother-father hardship. Mother-father neighborhood disadvantage. Father unsafe neighborhood. Mother unsafe neighborhood. Mother parenting stress. Children in household. Mother multi-partner fertility. Mother spanks child. Child race. Child gender. Low birth weight. Child poor health. And sample city category.
Wow.
Okay, so exactly. Wow. So they did not include coefficient estimates for all those because they were just control variables, right? They just listed in a footnote in small type. These were all the control variables we included. Why did they need to control for all of those variables?
To avoid spurious relationships.
Absolutely, to avoid spurious relationships. Absolutely, right? So their sample size was 3,561 for this one table I'm looking at, and there's a bunch of tables. And this was parent involvement by year 9. So the sample size was 3,561 for this model, right? So give me the statistical answer for why they included all those variables in addition to avoid spuriousness.
So that they could, well, no, I mean, avoid seriousness. You have to show the real relationship between, incarceration and parental involvement, I guess.
Yeah, so isolate the independent effect of parental incarceration on the dependent variable. Outstanding. And that is such a good answer. That is such a good answer. One of the reasons... Okay, now here's like the statistical answer.
Okay.
One of the reasons why they included all those variables is because they could. Mm. Yeah, I know. It's that old answer. Why did they include all those variables? Because they could. Did they have the data already available to them through the Fragile Families study?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the data. 3,561, that's your sample size. Is that a large sample size?
Yeah.
Yep. Even if you control for all those things, are you still going to have a lot of statistical leverage, are you still going to get pretty accurate coefficient estimates?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, you can't have more variables than you have observations.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of one of the fundamental things. And one of the things kind of to draw from that is, if I've got 10,000 observations, I can include a lot of variables because I'll still have a lot of statistical leverage. Remember how we talked about multicollinearity and how it's really a micronumerosity problem? Well, if you have a really large data set, then micronumerosity should be less of a problem. You should still get pretty accurate estimates on your variables because your data set's really large and you have the variation that you need in order to explore those relationships between the independent variables, the control variables sometimes, and the dependent variable. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'll ask again. It's the oldest statistical answer. Why did they include so many control variables?
Because they can.
Because they could. Because they could. The data set is just that big. It's just that good, right? And so what did they find? They basically found that having been previously incarcerated reduced the amount of parental involvement. And it was pretty darn strong for fathers. Interestingly enough, not quite as strong for mothers. Yeah, so make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was writing all this down. Or I was printing all these out, but they said basically, sorry, I have to find something really quickly here.
No problem.
Thanks, son. I appreciate your patience. Okay. Yeah, I mean they have so many tales. It's so many tables. It's crazy. This is a very thorough article. It's very good. This is their main finding. They said, in drawing attention to the interactions occurring at the intersection of three of the United States' most powerful social institutions, families, schools, and the criminal justice system, this work highlights an additional dimension in the growing incarceration ledger by suggesting that parental incarceration is a unique marker of disadvantage associated with reductions in fathers' home-based schooling involvement and fathers and primary caregivers' school-based involvement. Having an ever-incarcerated father is significantly associated with reductions in self-reported school-based involvement, such as attending conferences, volunteering at school, or participating in parent-teacher organizations for primary caregivers. So, paternal incarceration is not negatively associated with home-based schooling activities, like reading books and helping with homework, in which primary caregivers engage with their children, but it is associated with reductions in fathers' self-reports of such activities by nearly 40%. Yeah. So, What do they mean when they say, put this in the mass incarceration ledger?
And the work done on it?
Yeah, they're saying even more than that. They're saying put this in the downside column, right? The bad side of mass incarceration, right? In the ledger, you have money coming in, money going out, good things, bad things. There, put this in the mass incarceration ledger. This is an example of yet one more negative consequence of mass incarceration. It limits parental involvement, especially at school-based parental involvement. And what do you suppose all the educational research out there shows? Is parental involvement in a child's education a good thing or a bad thing?
A good thing?
It's a good thing. Yeah, it all shows it's good. And so this is yet another negative effect of mass incarceration. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay, so at the end of the day, don't make the research design more complicated than it is. What's your dependent variable?
Parental involvement.
Very good. And I gave you a couple of examples of control variables, but what's your main independent variable?
Previously incarcerated.
Exactly. And if you've been previously incarcerated, what happens to the level of parental involvement? Decreases. Is it statistically significant?
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's what the article finds. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, take care, guys, and have a great day.